Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Welcome to the webinar on Catalyst for Sustainability conducted by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. This insightful webinar will feature a distinguished panel of experts today. And the session will be focusing on principles of circular economy. The discussion will highlight the pivotal roles of water and waste reduction and management, resource circulation, and natural system regeneration. A recording of this insightful session will be shared on the conclusion of the session. And without further ado, I would welcome Mr. Nadeem Majid to take over the session. Over to you, Nadeem.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to this webinar on Catalysts for Sustainability. I want to start by thanking the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce for putting this together. I think all of us can agree that, and we're seeing it in real time with the growing intensity of extreme weather events in Sri Lanka, that we are well past time where serious action needs to be taken to ensure sustainability in our economics and in our broader society as well. Sri Lanka faces very significant challenges here, especially in the areas that we're going to focus on today in waste management, resource depletion, and also in environmental degradation. So I don't want to take up too much time setting the context here, because I think everyone who's on this webinar knows what we're here to talk about. So let me quickly introduce our panel of experts. First, we have Anosha Koralage from John Keells Holdings. She is the head of sustainability, enterprise risk management and group initiatives at JKH. She also holds a master's in sustainability leadership from Cambridge, MSc in energy and environment engineering from Sheffield, and has over 14 years of experience in sustainability, energy and environmental engineering. We're also joined by Lakshan Madrasinghe from Coca-Cola. Lakshan has over 20 years of experience across multiple sectors, and his academic background is also quite broad and diversified, with qualifications in management, diplomacy, international relations, human resources management, psychology, and economics. And last but not least, we're joined by Richard Taylor from CTC. Richard has been with CTC for over a year now and counts over a decade in experience with the BAT Group, British American Tobacco Group. His past experience also includes stints at Ernst & Young and Unilever. So Anosha, Lakshan, Richard, thank you for joining us for this very important webinar, crucial subject. Anosha, I'd like to start with you, given your experience in the field as well. Can you run us through the importance of waste reduction and effective waste management when we're talking about the circular economy in Sri Lanka?
Yes. So basically, I mean, to get to the topic, first we should look at what circular economy is. And if you just look at the definition of circular economy, we are talking about how it's a model that basically helps you keep products and materials and resources in use for as long as possible, and basically reducing waste and the consumption of the resources. So how waste management would help the circular economy is basically, if you look at different waste management strategies, it starts off all the way at the design stage, where you look at design for either for it to last a long time, or design for modularity, so that you don't necessarily need to throw away products just because one part of it is not working. So it starts off at that place where you look at how you design it, and then basically look at what materials that actually goes into it. So it ranges from a lot of different things. You could actually go into your virgin raw materials, but in most cases, you could actually look at sort of plugging in recyclable materials from maybe another process, another product, so on. So once you actually come to that point where you have had your material selection process. It then depends on how, like, is this product going to last a long time, or is it going to be one of those short span ones? So again, in a waste management strategy, for it to be prolonged, you actually should design for an extended product lifespan. Once you actually have come all the way there, and a consumer is also using a product, then comes the actual end of lifespan of a product, and then what do you do with it? So I think, again, you sort of come back to some of the parts of the raw material selection process as well, where basically, if the product that you design is going to be so integrated to a point that you can actually not take it apart, at the end of life, what you actually do with the product, or how it's going to be taken apart to sort of recycle or to recover any material is going to be, again, hard. So it's almost like a chicken and egg thing, like, where do you start, where do you end? It's sort of so you just need, it's a process that needs to be taken place, where you have all of those expertise coming together just to understand how you actually take what you do at the end of a lifespan of a product life cycle. So when you actually come to the end of it, you sort of look at how you can take it apart. One of the strategies we use is basically you design it, and you actually do a takedown process, where you actually try to take a fully finished product apart and see how fast or how soon you can take it apart, and what are the materials that you can recover, so that you can actually either repurpose it, recycle it, or channel it to any other process. So once the end of a life, once a product reaches its end of its life, one of the things we can do as responsible organizations or producers is to sort of give a consumer the knowledge on what they need to do on after they reach that, after the product reaches its end of its life. Do you either, do you need to wash it? Do you need to do something with it? Who do you need to give it to? Instead of just dumping it in the waste, because I mean, although we would have that knowledge, I mean, you wouldn't expect everyone to know what exactly they need to do, or what materials they can recover from it, or what they can do with at the end of the life. So if it can be repurposed into something else, by all means, it's something, again, that I think now with a lot of social media, people seem to be, on Pinterest and all that, you see a lot of different things of how people seem to be using products for a longer time. But then once a product is channeled for recycling, in a proper recycling facility, there would be a disintegration of the product to sort of break it into the different components. And one of the first strategies to use would be to sort of see if we can recover the certain material. So then that material should be recovered and then channeled back into another process. Then we should look at the rest of it to understand what can be recycled, channel them for recycling. And when it comes to a point where you actually don't have any other strategy, one of the other things you could do is look at waste to energy sort of strategies, where you use that waste to generate energy. So now we can actually see that picking up a lot, where most organizations are sort of geared towards zero waste to landfill, where they look at all their different types of waste and they've started talking to other organizations to understand, can my waste be a raw material to you? Coming together and developing partnerships, so that, where in the end, there is no waste that's actually going to landfill. And in our organizations also, that is a medium-term strategy that we are trying to put in place to understand how we can very effectively look at our waste and sort of channel it to proper waste management strategies, like, so yes. I hope
Thanks, Anusha. Lakshana, I'd actually like to bring you in on this, because I think what Anusha is kind of describing there is also what you call extended producer responsibility. And on that subject, I want to ask you, like businesses in Sri Lanka, how can you, sustain and protect the environment while also, we talk about in sustainability about triple bottom line thinking, etc. EPR is perhaps an extension of that. How do you implement EPR in the context of a Sri Lankan business?
Thanks, Nadeem. Thanks for the question, and thanks to the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce for inviting us on the panel. So when you look at sustaining the environment, sustaining and protecting the environment, how businesses can play a role, EPR is definitely one powerful tool that has been deployed and used across the world from the 1990s when it originated. But when you look at EPR itself, extended producer responsibility, it is by and large an environmental protection strategy in itself. It's there to reach an environmental objective by really decreasing the total environmental impact from a product being made. And the shift was when the onus is placed on the manufacturer, the producer, the brand owner to take ownership and responsibility for the entire life cycle of the product, and looking at initiatives like Take Back, looking at scaling recycling, and really to the final disposal of that product made by that company. So to sustain and protect the environment, I believe the key word in EPR is the last letter, R, responsibility. It starts really from that place and position. In terms of how a company, how leadership takes ownership, accountability, and responsibility. That is the foundation. It starts there. And US companies have been practicing this for a long time, and producers like us, Coca-Cola, can no longer think of only up to the point of sale, up to the consumer, but and it has changed, and it is the responsibility that it has to go post-consumer, right to the end of that product's life cycle, and then to keep it in circulation and create the circular economy, as Anusha was speaking about. So that was the intent on how it was developed in the 1990s, and the framework that EPR came into being was really to lessen the burden that is placed on municipalities, because countries, governments realized the funding and the management of municipalities was getting more and more challenging. So they wanted to take the burden and shift from the municipalities and incorporate the role of producers and manufacturers to look at upstream solutions as well, and give that onus to producers. So I think it's important also as companies and leaders that we don't make EPR compliance just a simple tick mark. It can't be a tick mark. It can't be something you just adopt because regulation says you must. It's always important that you bring it into practice way before, and it really needs to be long term. It has to be ingrained in strategy, in your business DNA, in your medium, long-term goals. Only then would it sustain, impact the environment, and create those meaningful long-term benefits. So today, companies in Sri Lanka, across the countries, are focusing on upstream impacts and solutions. And in terms of, like Anusha was mentioning, in terms of selection of materials itself, it starts from there, how your products are made, the impact of your production process itself. When you're into manufacturing, especially, there's a lot of production that takes place. The process is important, and how that impacts downstream. The downstream impacts need to be taken into account right up to the disposal of the product. One of the things that we often say is that we should never rush into implementing EPR. It needs to be long-term. It has to be assessed properly, designed so that you take into consideration all the learnings so that it is sustainable. And when companies do embrace EPR, they're essentially saying that they want to be part of the solution. They want to promote circularity, and they're committing to funding, because it takes time, resources, fundings, and there are multiple interventions that you must make And when you do all this, obviously you realize that you can't do it alone. So the beautiful aspect of EPR is when you bring collaboration and partnership into play. So, and finally, just in closing on that point, Adim, I think it's important when we discuss EPR that businesses and companies need to know where they want to play a role and how. You don't, because different companies may be at different stages and relevancy. So some may get involved in design specifically and how to translate those designs and provide that intel to other businesses. Some would focus on infrastructure developments. Some may delegate it to a producer responsibility organization. So there are many ways and roles that you can be part of the EPR process. But the first part is understanding there is a responsibility and want to take action.
Lakshman, on that subject, just quickly before I move to Richard as well, you mentioned that in a lot of instances we see there is a risk of compliance with the environmental regulations, EPR checklists, etc., being limited to just that, a checklist. Are there any sort of best practices, experiences that you have within your industry itself of, fast-moving consumer goods that other companies in Sri Lanka can learn from?
Yeah.
To prevent this from happening?
Yeah. I mean, we talk about experiences, best practices. It's required. If I speak specifically to the PET sector, the PET plastics, PET packaging industry, and the beverage players, I think we've been on this journey in Sri Lanka, at least from 2018. I do overlook the Maldives, Nepal, Bhutan as well. And in each of these countries, we're at different stages of EPR implementation. I mean, really quickly, some of the learnings that I can share is, while the focus, for example, can be overly stated on collection, on recovery and recycling, which is important because you need to collect back that which you sell. I go back to Anosha's point on design. I think there's a lot of emphasis and attention that needs to still be played in design. For example, in the PET industry, the PET bottles, we look at lightweighting very strongly. How do you reduce the virgin injection into your, so even if you reduce a few grams of PET, and we've done that many year on year in Sri Lanka and globally as well, it translates into huge metric tons of thousands of bottles and virgin resources that would have been used. So how do you lightweight? How do you look at using the right colors in your packaging? Trying to keep it clear and transparent as much as possible, because clear packaging improves and supports recycling and it's more recyclable. How do you have your goals in place? So Coca-Cola has a world without waste. That is our overarching sustainability packaging agenda globally. It covers all the markets we operate in, the 200 plus. So one of the goals is by the year 2025, every product that we sell hits the shelf must be recycled 100%. If not, they don't go on the shelf. So having some of those goals are important, and then working towards them. If I may, this is a point because we have done a lot of work. When planning interventions, I think strategy, making the process as inclusive as possible is important, even from within the organization and externally. At Coca-Cola, we have a principle of known as the golden triangle approach, where we incorporate government, the private sector, and civil society in our solution. It was how EPR was framed in Sri Lanka. This journey started in 2018, as I mentioned. It was with Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, the Ministry of Environment, all line ministries, the private sector, recyclers, everyone came together. And I believe if you want EPR to be successful in your company, from your employees themselves, it has to be communicated. There has to be belief that it's possible to do and why you're doing it, how you're doing it. So that system alignment internally is also important.
Thanks, Lakshan. You've set it up perfectly for me to pose my next question to Richard Taylor, Head of Operations at CTC. Richard, Lakshan was talking about, there are upstream methods, but also downstream, you're looking at like your employees themselves and what can be done to sort of foster a culture of sustainability amongst employees themselves. How can organizations really work towards facilitating this culture. Any experiences that you want to share from your experience with BAT and also now with CTC?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. So I think first to start is, as individuals, we're increasingly being educated on the impact we have on the environment and how we should minimize that impact. We're becoming much more aware of, becoming much more eco-conscious as every year progresses. And you see it as the generations are coming up. Even my 11-year-old daughter is coming home from school teaching me about sustainability and what I can do in my household to become more eco-friendly. So that the challenges are coming from a very young age, which is fantastic as these people progress through. I think employees are playing a pivotal role in fostering that culture of sustainability because of their personal beliefs that they have at home. They're not just looking for job security, financial rewards like probably typically we were a decade ago, but they're wanting this sense of purpose from where they work. They want alignment with their personal values. They want to feel as though they're contributing to the challenges that we're all experiencing. And with that personal belief, they expect their employers to uphold those high standards around environmental management, to be comfortable working in the place that they are choosing to work. And I think employees who see organizations actively really embracing that sustainability agenda, they're more likely to be engaged, they're more likely to be motivated, they're more likely to be loyal. And ultimately, I see that leading to job satisfaction and higher levels of productivity. And as the part of the LT here in CTC, that's obviously what we absolutely strive for. And the younger generations, when I interview the graduates coming through into CTC and BAT, they really talk to me about, they want us to see that not just that we talk the talk, but we really walk the walk around sustainability and make a difference. So at CTC, we've recognized this, and we've really cultivated a culture that prioritizes sustainability and encourages that positive mindset rather than just focusing on commercial gain. Our parent group, you mentioned, I'm part of CTC, but BAT is our parent group. It's got a big global footprint, like we've heard from Coca-Cola, and like many business, it relies on natural resources to run our business. So we have a responsibility to wider society to minimize that impact on the environment. And that's why we've got to put sustainability at the forefront of our processes and our decision making that we partake in BAT. We focus on the most important areas that we believe are affecting the planet, that are affecting our business, that are affecting our stakeholders. So we have a real focus on addressing climate change and sustainable water stewardship, eliminating waste and circular economy, as has been talked around already, as well as biodiversity and afforestation. So kind of 4 key areas that we continually looking at. And this ESG focus, the KPIs associated with these ESG agendas, are now assumed as equal and integral to alongside the traditional commercial KPIs. You need to display that you're delivering shareholder value through commercial KPIs. You need to show you're delivering shareholder value through the ESG KPIs. And this shift is well reflected in the way we're working in CTC. We now issue our ESG report alongside our annual report, and we've been doing that since last year. And this integrated approach that we follow in just shows that commitment to everyone, to our employees and our external stakeholders about how we act responsibly. We're delivering sustainable value to the shareholders, but with that sustainable agenda at our heart. Success is absolutely linked to sustainable operations, not just those commercial gain. And that's the key takeout. Even business cases that we do inside BAT now, the business cases used to be very much looking at what commercial value we can get out of it. We now do full impact assessments on on those 4 key priority areas to say, is this a good thing for the environment, yes or no? And then we balance impacts between commercial and the ESG KPIs to inform our next steps. We keep pushing this as well. So in the BAT group, we've recently formed global centers of excellence around sustainability. So we have deep subject matter experts now that are setting benchmarks around leading practices for governance, for processes, that's then deployed out to the markets like we have in Sri Lanka here. And so we work together with these COEs to accelerate that sustainability ambition that we all need to be adhering to. So to conclude, businesses must put ESG at the forefront. And I think I genuinely believe at CTC we're making significant strides in the way we're now operating with our people to deliver that sustainable operation, and really working to starting to contribute to addressing the global environmental challenges that we're all facing.
Richard, I know that you kind of touched on this as well, but could you take us through like the process where your organization or even other organizations can really integrate sustainability considerations into the decision-making process, like at every level of the decision?
Yeah, as I say, I think it's at every element now that we follow in that process. We contribute. We do it through the business cases, the example I gave. We're always impact assessing the actions that we are taking on those 4 key sustainability metrics that we're working against. The climate change impacts, how we're reducing our water outtake from the grid. What can we do to reduce that requirement? Circular economy, I know Shura has already talked about. I think there's every design of product now that we work on, we need to continually be addressing where the materials are coming from and how we can recycle them. And I think in the BAT world, where we're moving to be part of becoming a technology company as well as our cigarette business, that becomes an even bigger challenge where we're dealing with electronic waste. So a big focus area on product design that has been talked about on that point there. But it's having this ESG mindset is of equal importance to the commercial mindset, drives the behaviours underneath to ensure that our employees and our decisions are really doing the right thing from a sustainability angle as well as a commercial angle.
Could you share some innovative approaches or projects that you'll have used that can support like an organization? Any specific examples that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think first of all, to set the innovative approach, you need to set your vision. So in 2021, our CEO set a vision of an accelerated journey to be carbon neutral and to bring sustainability at the forefront. So set your vision up front, change the mindset. So it took extensive engagement, communication, campaigning, really to generate the right cultural shift to deliver on that ambition. We're moving from commercial focus to bringing sustainability to the heart. And ultimately that vision was successfully delivered. So CTC is carbon neutral in scopes 1 and 2 across our operating sites since last year, which is a fantastic achievement. And the bigger achievement that we're very proud of here in Sri Lanka is that we're the first end market within the BAT group to achieve the certification, to have it across our full operations. So that received global recognition really right the way through to our main board. And it's something we continue to be very proud of as the other markets try and catch up with us. So how did we do this? First of all, we're looking at energy efficiency and optimization projects. So what can we do better with what we've currently got? So things like within my factories, we're looking at crewing optimization to ensure we're getting the most factory output per energy unit used. How can we use your factory as optimally as you can? And then we've also done asset upgrades, moving from energy consuming assets to more energy efficient assets to really become more efficient in the current operations that we have. We've also moved to 100% solar panel coverage on our factory, on our leaf factory in Kandy and our cigarette factory in Colombo. That was a 2.8 megawatt project. And it has the capacity to give 50% of cleaner energy back to the grid. So this was a big initiative to deliver on that scope 1, 2 carbon neutral claim. In addition, our remaining electricity purchase and consumption was covered by IREX and carbon offsetting schemes, but we want to be more sustainable than using those kind of schemes going forward. So we're going a step further on this. We're in the process of triggering a project at the moment, which has now got presidential approval to have our own carbon certified forest in Sri Lanka. And the aim of that is to reduce that overall requirement for IREX and carbon credits by using our own natural resources. And once again, CTC is setting the pathfinder here in the BAT group. We're the first in the BAT group to look at this kind of certified forest project. And it's been widely followed for something that can be replicated in our other markets. Around water,
Go ahead, Richard. Go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry, on water.
Around water, our sustainability goals include investment towards better water management. So we're the first company in Sri Lanka to be AWS core certified. So this is looking at our water withdrawn process. AWS Alliance for Water Stewardship, it's helping major users of water, understand water use and their impacts to drive sustainable water management. So our Kandy site is already AWS certified, and we're moving into Colombo certification by the middle of next year. Other areas for water recycling that we've enjoyed using on with minimum investment in plumbing. We're using recycled treated water for gardening purposes across the site, as well as for flushing in the washrooms. So that's a very modest, but still you can reduce your water withdrawn. And then even next year, we'll be installing a reverse osmosis plant into 2024, so we can start using recycled water in our manufacturing processes as well. So lots on water, lots on solar. We're also a zero waste to landfill site in Colombo. The waste segregation, I think, Anosha, you mentioned this. A lot of investment has been done to do waste segregation across the site. So even everyone from the head office down to the factory floor, very consciously segregating waste. We have a state-of-the-art waste facility now in Colombo that ensures this waste segregation carries on. We're working with local suppliers to build their capabilities on managing our recycled waste to try and achieve a 99% ambition of all our waste will be recycled. Waste avoidance is obviously the ideal as well, rather than recycling. So things like we're moving to become a fully digitalized factory, which means we can be paperless. So we don't track our manufacturing performance anymore on paper, we do it on iPads. And then we can use the quality information that's coming live to our screens to run meetings and avoid manual work as well, which is a great efficiency saver. We've stopped hand towels in the canteens, we're moving to that in the washrooms. It's a difficult waste to recycle there by simple things like installing hand dryers. So we're making lots of changes across the business to continue to drive across that agenda. And I think just to close, it's imperative that everyone's part of that journey. We talk about this being an individual responsibility. It's not just the organization's responsibility. And I think through that collective impact, that collective value of the employee and the employer working together, we can deliver this greener and more sustainable future.
Thanks, Richard. Anosha, I'd like to come to you on this one. We've heard from both Lakshan and Richard on some of the initiatives that they've undertaken at Coca-Cola and at CTC under the broader BAT umbrella as well. At JKH, specific examples of, we know that there have been several waste reduction programs. I mean, you go around, you see the cages for people to deposit plastic waste, etc. Specific examples of successful waste reduction initiatives at JKH and the benefits that have been brought by those projects.
Thanks, Lakshan. So basically, there's if you actually look at the waste management strategies that we've used in the organization, we have 8 industry groups working in so many different verticals. So when we look at where the waste is generated or how the waste is generated, we are actually almost looking at 8 different organizations or even more, because we have operations from retail to leisure to transportation, logistics, so on and so forth. So how we look at waste is like, so we have to take each business unit separately, but at a very high level, how we look at waste is we look at the biodegradable and the non-biodegradable waste. And we're actually in the process of bringing all of what we do together into one strategy. Just like Richard mentioned, John Keels also has just started on embarking on our ESG framework, putting together the framework for the group to understand what are the verticals that we would be working on, because we've been working on so many different verticals across all of our different sectors. So we're bringing them all together and defining those things at a group level and also at a sector level. So coming back to your question on waste, we look at it in 3 different ways. If I was just to focus on the non-biodegradable waste, to give you some examples, the three ways we look at it is to be proactive, preventive, and reactive. We already do produce a waste. So reactive is basically when we react to it and the different initiatives that we carry out. Being proactive, there's a couple of different things we look at. How we refuse, where there's alternatives that are available, we go for those instead of producing waste that cannot be recycled. So we are in the process of embarking on a waste audit to understand each and every different types of waste that we produced as a consumable in our operations, and to understand what are the alternatives that are available. Then we look at reduce, where we, for an example, in our production operation processes in consumer foods, we can, so we have operations ranging from food to PET bottles to ice cream cartons, so on and so forth. So we have to look at how we can reduce the waste, and that is by bringing in all sorts of innovations to maybe, like Lakshan mentioned, the gauge of a bottle, the height of the cap. So those are certain things that we've actually brought in. Then looking at what sort of packaging are we using? Can we use different tensions so that we can actually reduce the amount of packing we use? So then going back to reusing, if there's waste that we produce that can be reused in operations, and then maybe channel it to, because we have such a diverse, diverse amount of diverse businesses in our operation. We actually look at how we can reuse the waste and also repurpose it. And then finally, the recycling bit, where we channel all the waste that John Keel's as a group in each of our sectors or BUs is produced, is actually channeled for responsible recycling. And even the biodegradable waste is actually channeled into maybe piggeries or waste to energy plants. So that's the proactive side of it. Then when we come to the preventive side, it's basically because we are an organization, there's two ways that we generate waste. One is the waste that we generate through our day-to-day operations. So that's because we consume raw materials, there is waste that we produce through operations. Then as we actually do produce a product, we have waste that is generated at a consumer as well. Prevention, we look at as at the consumer end. How do we prevent it from getting to the environment and polluting the environment? So there are two things, because we actually produce a product. There could be pollution in water bodies and ground. So we've focused on those basically because we are not a huge chemical manufacturer. We actually have a non-biodegradable product, or like a plastic. We produce plastic. So so that's basically the bin network that you were talking about. So we have we look at water pollution and ground pollution, and for all of them, if you look at how we prevent it, we have a bin network that is actually there's a group initiative called the Plastic Cycle Initiative. There is then we actually, through Elephant House CCS, there is again the bin network expanded across the island. There are also material recovery facilities that are set up across the country. So what we are focusing on is not Colombo. I mean, we are focusing on Colombo also, but what we see is less and less of recycling happening outside of Colombo due to many different reasons, mainly around logistics, the costs that you have to incur. So what we are doing as an organization is understanding the areas that we need to set up these facilities, and we set them up as a social entrepreneurship project, where we actually look at a women-led group or like a low-income area, and we set it up in a way that they actually have enough products coming in to actually have an economic benefit. So then we have, so that's one of the things we do as a prevention method. Then we also have, I spoke about the material recovery facilities. Then we also do a lot of awareness sessions. So it happens in all our different sectors in multiple, we speak to schools, we have, we touch upon religious places, we go to gatherings, so on and so forth. There's like so many different places we go to do this awareness. And because we are such a big organization spread across the country, we actually have multifaceted approaches when it comes to awareness. Then when you look at then we come to the reactive side of it. That's basically where, the waste has already been generated, it's there, and it's in the ground, or it's maybe, in the water. So we recently deployed an initiative called the Good Water Initiative. So that is focusing on the non-biodegradable waste pollution in our water bodies. So why we are focusing again on non-biodegradables is because that is the material aspect of waste to our organization. So there, what we are looking at, we have multiple projects. There is, we've partnered up with MS Foundation to get the ocean strainers to ensure that there is no plastic waste that goes from the inland waterways to the ocean, because when it gets to the ocean, trying to retrieve it back is much harder. So we've started deploying these ocean strainers across these waterways, inland waterways. We've also looking at how we can clean up the barrier, look at how we could stop the waste from coming into the barrier, because again, that's like a material water body around Colombo that, actually has a lot of stench most of the time. Yes. And through the Plastic Cycle Initiative, we've actually also started doing reef cleanups. So there has been about 11 to 15 dives that has happened in Trincomalee, where they've dived into the ocean and retrieved ghost fishing nets. So those are some of the initiatives around water that we've done. Then around ground, as a reactive measure, we actually do multiple location and event cleanups. There's multiple beach cleanups, there's large scale events. If there is a religious, like a perahara, or if there is some form of during the season in Kataragama or even the Adams Peak, there's a lot of waste that is generated that is just discarded. So our organization actually brings our employees together to do volunteer sessions where we actually go and clean those places up, take those waste, and then channel it to material recovery facilities. So those are like the three ways we look at it, being proactive, preventive, and reactive. And what we want to do is move from reactive to the preventive and proactive spaces, because we want to make sure that it doesn't actually get to the environment. And we are trying to do what we can do to make sure that either we produce less of waste, or we actually have ways of retrieving it back and channeling it to proper recycling methods. And also another thing we are looking at is like I mentioned, we have these material recovery facilities that we're setting up as where we are sort of providing an additional income to these low income or even women-led groups. And there's quite a few success stories there where this has, for some, has become a secondary income, and for some has actually become a primary income because of the amounts of waste that we've generated. And we actually have done it in an innovative way where we provide them with the basic infrastructure that is required, from a shed to a shredder to a baler, and also give them a couple of bins that they can place strategically where they know there'll be a lot of collection happening. Another thing we are now trying to look at is, because as an organization, I mentioned that we actually generate a lot of waste that we currently channel to a lot of recycling partners. We are now looking at how we can channel that waste into our own material recovery facilities so that we strengthen them further. Because within the group, we already have the recycling facility available. So what we want to do is slowly start channeling the waste that is generated within the organization and also to these places, and strengthen that so that we further improve the income of of all of these of all of the material recovery facility owners. So those are some of the examples that actually come to my mind, but there's quite a bit that happens in our organization that, you know, I mean, that day to day it happens. But I think when we actually have these ESG strategy together and we have all of those verticals defined, this would be a much more powerful story, and we can actually show collectively the impact that John Keel's as an organization across all of their business units is making as an impact towards the country and our environment as well. Yes.
Thanks, Anusha. I think we're about 5 minutes over time. CCC, do we have time for one more question to wrap it up with Lakshan, maybe? Okay, CCC is not responding, so I'm going to take command authority and pose a quick question to Lakshan. Lakshan, we're talking about, Anusha also touched on, you know, how you get consumers also. We talked about from the organization's perspective, what employees can do, and then you have the consumers themselves, what they can do. Because I think something that Anusha mentioned is maybe in Colombo and in more urban areas, there are the logistics are there to promote recycling and reusing. But as you spread out a bit further out, it becomes tougher. So how can we sort of address these challenges of ensuring that the reduce, reuse, recycle, the circle is functioning in rural areas, more remote parts of the country as well?
Sure, sure. So yeah, we need to have consumers part of the whole exercise and cycle. I mean, there's responsibility for consumers after consumption, post-consumption. But oftentimes you find, and waste is an interesting landscape, challenges are there where even consumers, when they want to be part of a solution, you know, to recycle their own packaging, they don't seem to be able to find one. You segregate at home, but when the garbage truck comes, everything gets all mixed up again. It ends up in a landfill or burned somewhere. So why bother segregate in the first place unless certain things are in place? So what we have done and we've looked at is, you know, on the waste space specifically, we realize the material recovery facilities are the locally relevant, one of the locally relevant solutions. So today we have 6 active MRFs, 8 by the end of the year. We have over 21 baling facilities provided to local government across the country. So we want to take these facilities, not just in the Western province, but across the country. So that even as a consumer, you have a place to now deposit your waste and even earn money from it, you know, earn some extra cash on that. So we want to ensure that infrastructure was made available to the collectors as well. So like Anusha mentioned, we have placed over 500 bins across the country. We have set up 21 collection huts along the ports so that fisher folk have a place to put back their material. So it's really of convenience also in terms of having strategic locations set up. It can be a small bin in a highway. Interesting project that we have done on several highways, including with Ceylon Cold Stores recently. So a joint partnership between Coca-Cola and CCS. So how you have varied sizes of bins going all the way to MRF. So we have deployed that, and today we find over 1 million, you know, in Coca-Cola's interventions alone, we collect over 1.2 million kilos of PET on an annual basis, and in excess of that actually. So there's a lot of rooms to still grow and scale, but one is definitely providing access to consumers. They need to have places of convenience. You find reverse vending machines now in being set up, etc. as well, which is good. But then it's how do you take the message out, the education awareness, but selecting the right media. Media has to be a strategic partner in all that we do, but also ensuring that we use the right streams and channels to reach the consumer and educate them on what is recyclable. Sometimes it's the fundamentals, it's the simple things, just simply what is recyclable and not. What does 1 to 7 stand for in the plastic resin identification code? 1 being PET, 2 being HDP, etc. So a lot of education needs to go on, I think much more, and especially hitting digital streams, and even in today's world, getting influencers involved and spreading that message as much as possible. But finally, sorry.
Yeah, final thought.
So finally, it's also a combination of how to get more people involved in source segregation at home. We have launched a partnership, Coca-Cola Beverages Sri Lanka Limited launched a partnership with Uber Eats to go direct to homes, to use riders and that network to collect back. So reverse logistics comes into play a lot as well. So I think it's a mix of a lot of different ways and solutions: education, access, ease and convenience, communication, but also having the wherewithal and patience to know that some of these solutions, interventions don't bring results immediately. It's not a 6-month, 1-year journey. It has to be sustained commitment over time. And that's where you see transformation, behavioral change, and real impact. And we have to collaborate and do things together and form more partnerships to really see viable solutions for Sri Lanka, to see scalable solutions for Sri Lanka, and bring innovation into it as well.
Thanks, Lakshan. And I think that there's a lot of what you mentioned with the media, but there's, I guess, also with grassroots community-based organizations and also with broader civil society as well. There is an opportunity for collaboration with the private sector in tackling waste. Before we leave, just one final. Richard, are you able to tell us where the carbon certified forest will be
I do know, but I'm not entirely sure I'm allowed to say just yet as we go through the governance process around it. So as I haven't got my lawyer sat next to me, maybe I can share it offline. But obviously in Sri Lanka, that's what you need to know.
Thanks very much, Richard. That sounds like a very, very exciting project as well. So thank you again. I think we've gone 10 minutes over, so we'll wrap up there. Thank you again, Richard Taylor, Lakshan Madhur-Singh, and Anosha Korolage for joining us on Catalyst for Sustainability. Some parting thoughts from me. We talked about waste management and waste reduction, and I think that in the whole conversation around reduce, reuse, and recycle, on the part of the public, we tend not to give the due weighting, let's say, to reduce, which is probably equally, if not more important than the other two arts. So on that note, I'll wrap it up. Thank you again, Richard, Lakshan, and Anosha.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.